Okay?
Yeah.
So, I think Tristan asked the question about penguins. This here is a statue of a penguin that I have on my desk. I didn't see any penguins in Antarctica because when I did my expedition I headed inland and the penguins were all on the outside of the coast. So for 50 days, when I did my solo journey to the South Pole, I didn't see any animals or any people or anything at all. I was completely alone. After this talk, I'll send you 2 films. I'll send you teachers 2 films to have a look at about the expedition itself.
Next question. Next question. Nathan.
I've got something special to show you. I'll just show you this first, if that's okay. There's a picture here of a... can anybody guess what this is? This is a polar bear tooth.
Oh my gosh, it's so big.
See that?
Yeah. It's so big.
How it is? There you go. So this is how big it is. Massive tooth. So I got that off an Inuit hunter about 10 years ago. So he found it on the beaches in the Arctic. Prized possession. So next question. Good question, that Tristan. Thank you.
Go closer. Go to the front, Nathan.
Quick.
Okay.
Okay. Do you have to deal with ice caps?
You have to say that again, buddy.
Do you have to deal with ice caps?
Do you have to deal with ice caps?
Deal with them? Yeah, I've crossed them quite a few times. On the Arctic Ocean, especially when you cross them, you feel like you're on a sea itself. And sometimes when you camp your tent at night, you actually drift maybe 1 or 2 k's back on the route that you've come on. So they are very, very, you can feel that you're on the ice cap. It's very, very sort of strange thing to go on. Yeah.
Good question, Nathan. Thanks.
Have you ever been to the Arctic?
We researched about it. How did you get to the North? How did you get to the North Pole?
How did I get to the North Pole? Well, I skied. So I used skis, I pulled a sledge, and I got helicoptered in from a Russian helicopter, and I was dropped off in the middle of the Arctic Ocean, and the helicopter disappeared. I was left alone, and I walked to the North Pole, and I was picked up just over the other side of the North Pole itself. That was about 12, maybe 14, no, a bit longer than that, 2 years ago. When I was at the North Pole, the Russians told me a polar bear was following my tracks. A polar bear and the cubs were following my tracks, so a very dangerous situation to be in. And luckily I was helicoptered out at the right time.
Did you get that, guys? The polar bear, so his tracks in the snow, polar bear, and he smells polar bear and its cubs following him.
How cold is the North Pole? Okay. Well, if you want to sit down, we'll all do an experiment, shall we?
Yeah.
Okay. So, a lot of people ask me how cold it is in the North Pole compared to the South Pole. North Pole on top of the world, South Pole on the bottom of the world. So we're going to do a little experiment. Is everybody okay with this? Good answer, that's the correct answer. So, in the South Pole, it's the biggest deserts on the planet. So it's very, very dry. So if you look, and in the North Pole, because it's on an ocean, it's very, very wet. So, let's go back to Antarctica. If you get the back of your hand, everybody hold the hand up, and if you blow on the back of your hand, show the wind in the South Pole. Blow on the back of your hand. And then lick the back of your hand. And blow again quickly. See how cold it is? Now that's different. As soon as you add wet to it, and the wind blows on it, it gets tremendously cold. So even though Antarctica is a very cold place in the high to the winter, generally the wetness, the cold wetness of the Arctic is quite cold. Okay, next question.
Thank you. Great experiment.
How old are you?
How old am I? Eh? How do I get at you? How do I get at you? How old am I? Well, I'm not going to say how old do you think I am because it's always embarrassing. Because you'll probably say 70 or 80 or something. I'm 47 years old. Wow. That's okay, isn't it? 47 years old. At the age of 40, I gave my job in as a firefighter. So I began my life as a soldier. I then became a firefighter, and now I do exploration. So I've done quite a few varied things in this very short life I've had so far. Still got my looks. So very handsome, elegant man. I'm sure you'd agree. No? Okay.
William, where's William?
How do you keep clean?
How did I keep clean? That's a good question. I love that question. Well, you know, we don't really wash on expedition. So for 50 days in Antarctica, I didn't wash, and I didn't change my clothes either. The only good thing about that is your nostrils. But these things here, your nostrils, they freeze up at minus temperatures, so you can't smell too well, which is good news. And for my next expedition next year, I'm in training already. I'm not washing at all. That was a joke. Oh, you can have a snow bath. Has anybody heard of a snow bath?
Yeah.
What you do is you go into the freezing snow, you kneel in the snow, and you then get the snow, take your top off, you get the snow, and you rub it all over you. And it generally keeps you clean. It's tremendously, and when you put your clothes back on, you're nice and snug and warm. But that's the only way we can keep fresh.
Eloise?
How many teachers have questions?
Oh, good balance work there. I like that.
How thick is the ice that you walk on?
How thick is it? What's your name?
Eloise.
Eloise. Eloise, can you see the camera? Right? Can you see the camera, yeah?
Yeah.
You go up to the camera and just give me a high five on the camera. You ready? All the way from England. Go up to the camera, put your hand on the camera. Ready?
No, the camera at the top, Els.
At the top.
Yeah.
There you go, high five. All the way from England, high five. The first high five all that distance away. So the thickness of the ice, well, the thickness of the ice can be 6, 7, 10 meters thick, so very, very thick ice, or it can be paper thin ice, as thin as this card here, this paper. And sometimes what happens is the snow will come down and settle on the top of the paper thin ice. And underneath the ice is the ocean, the Arctic Ocean. So when you stand on it, you'll think you're standing on solid ice, but you're not, and it can crack. And you can actually put your foot in the ocean. So it's a very dangerous place to actually travel through. But the majority of the ice is very, very thick. But of course it moves as well because it's an ocean. So it drifts as you go along. It's like being in a fun house at the circus. You never know what's going to happen. The environment changes around you. It's a beautiful place to travel through.
Simon, go. Got loads of questions. Simon, go. Anybody else? Bernard, have you got a question as well? Go after Simon. Yes.
How cold is it in the Arctic and Antarctica?
How cold is it? Okay, so I gave you an idea about temperature with blowing of the hand, yeah? But to give you a better idea, shall I? When you expose your hand to minus temperatures, when you put your hand in the freezer that we operate in, your hand starts to die. So the blood vessels start to close up. The blood stops flowing around the body itself. In the extremities, to begin with. And the extremities are the furthest point from your body. So your fingers and your toes, and in my case, my big nose as well. So those are the areas that start to freeze to begin with. And your body starts to close down. So the key to survival in the Arctic is to move slowly, to keep warm, keep your body warm, eat properly, and so you're constantly looking after yourself all the time. Shall I tell you what the biggest killer is in the Arctic? Okay. Some people think it's polar bears, but it's not. It's actually sweat. You know, when you're playing sports and you sweat, well, that's liquid coming out your body. And if you're working in minus temperatures, that liquid will turn to ice. And if it freezes around here, where your heart and your lungs and everything that keeps you alive is here, if that freezes, then your body again starts to die. So the biggest killer is sweat. So what we do is we ventilate. We open our jackets up and we move at a pace where we don't sweat at all. Okay? I don't think you have a problem in your country with cold, do you?
No. We're in the island.
Well done, Simon. Sit down, Simon. Thanks. Boomer.
Yeah.
Hello.
What things do you take with you to survive?
What did I take with me to survive?
Yeah.
Well, I took the basics of survival, which is a tent, so shelter. I took food, which was dehydrated food, so like you add water and it expands. And I also took, I took fuel with me. So a fuel to put in my cooker, and then I take the snow, put it in the pot, melt the snow, and then I boil up liquid to put into hot chocolates and teas and things like that. You can't drink cold water because it starts to cool the inside of your body, and you don't carry liquid with you. You melt all the snow around you. So that's the basics of the survival. One of the most important things I took with me, though, was a satellite phone. So I could then call in for rescue if I had any big problems, which could take days to get out to me, but it was good to have with me. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Sorry, I missed.
Is there sun at the poles?
There's sun at the poles.
Oh, I'll tell you what, that's a great question. Now, when I go to the North Pole next year, in February, they'll just be coming out of their winter. So it's dark for 24 hours. Yeah? You get some light coming through, so it's not pitch black. So you do see where you're going. And about the 18th of March next year, or each year, about that time, summer solstice kicks in. So the light starts coming back in again. But what happens is, and this is the fantastic thing, is the sun doesn't set and rise in the east and the west. The sun rotates around you. So it's constantly light, and it gets slightly dusk, if you like, then it's